Hello, and welcome to Rallying for Rail. Before making videos highlighting my probably hundreds, if not thousands of ideas for improving rail transit in the United States, we need to address the elephant in the room. The biggest excuse I hear for why critics of rail say that it doesn't make sense to have a vibrant national rail network in the United States. The excuse: America has a low population density. And I'm going to challenge that popular excuse in today's video. Now, there is no denying that America is sparsely populated overall. And, as a whole, we have a population density much lower than many of the countries whose national rail systems are the envy of the world, such as Japan, Spain, South Korea, and Switzerland. For some context, the United States has 97 people per square mile, according to the World Population Review. Japan has 871 people per square mile. Spain has 246 people per square mile. South Korea has 565 people per square mile. And Switzerland has 580 people per square mile. China, who, like the United States, has a lot of land mass, but has also developed some high-speed rail in recent years, has 392 people per square mile. However, our population density is higher than numerous countries whose national rail systems are regarded as significantly better than ours. Once again, for comparison, the United States has 97 people per square mile. However, Sweden has 68 people per square mile, Finland has 47 people per square mile, and Norway has 39 people per square mile. These countries' rail systems are not the envy of the world like Japan, South Korea, Spain, or Switzerland, but they have much more extensive, much more heavily used rail systems than the United States, in spite of being more sparsely populated than the United States. To highlight this, let's look at some ridership stats. The United States, with over 330 million people and 97 people per square mile, had a total Amtrak ridership of 28.5 million people in fiscal year 2023. Sweden, with 68 people per square mile and about 10.5 million people living there, had 2019 ridership of just over 250 million people. Now, I should add the disclaimer that these numbers came out before the COVID-19 pandemic. That said, I would be surprised if Sweden's ridership tanked to such an extent between 2019 and 2023 that they were to Amtrak ridership levels. As for Finland, with 47 people per square mile and about 5.5 million people living in the entire country, had a ridership of about 92 million in 2019. And Norway, with 39 people per square mile and about 5.5 million people living in the entire country, had 78 million passenger boardings in 2023. Even if we're to be generous and account for the 500 million or so riders in various regional rail systems in the United States, ridership per person is still significantly higher in Norway, Sweden, and Finland than the United States. And I don't think this is an accident. I looked at rail maps for all three of these countries, and their maps show quite a high volume of service for countries their size. Or at least a high volume of service relative to what we see in the United States. And that's in spite of their overall spread out populations. As Sweden, Finland, and Norway show, passenger rail can be extremely useful in sparsely populated countries. They have much lower populations than America and lower population densities than America, yet absolutely dominate the United States when it comes to the extensiveness and utility of their passenger rail systems. And that is one reason I don't really buy the notion that America is doomed to mediocre rail because it is sparsely populated compared to most nations. But also, once upon a time, the United States had a more extensive passenger rail system than we do now, in spite of being even more sparsely populated decades ago than we are now. So the United States has shown to itself that a sparsely populated country can have an extensive passenger rail network. As to what happened to that extensive network we once had, that's probably a story for its own video. I also read that the reasons behind the decline of passenger rail in the United States are hotly debated. But for now, I will say that, based on what I've read, it didn't help that most of the policy and funding focus in the 1950s and 60s was on planes and cars rather than on trains. The rise of American car culture after World War II also didn't help. And I'm guessing that, because of the car culture, it was politically more beneficial to push for car infrastructure than for rail infrastructure. But regardless of the reasons for passenger rail's decline in the United States, the fact remains that passenger rail has shown itself capable of being used by a sparsely populated America. There's one other reason I don't buy the population density excuse for why America can't or shouldn't have an extensive national rail network. The reason? Because even in places that are densely populated, our rail network in the United States is not what it should be. Let's take the state of Ohio, for example. According to the 2020 United States Census, Ohio has nearly 289 people per square mile, higher than Spain's population density of 246 people per square mile. Yet, several large population centers in that state don't have a single Amtrak station. Cities in Ohio such as Dayton, Akron, and, most infamously, Columbus, don't even have an Amtrak station. To stick with the Spain comparison here, not having an Amtrak station in Columbus, Ohio, is kind of like Seville in Spain not having a rail station. The population of the Columbus, Ohio metro area is higher than Seville's metro population, by several 100,000 people, in fact. Hence, my comparison between the two cities. For the record, not only does Seville have a station, but it has high-speed rail connecting the city to Madrid. Not convinced by Ohio? Let's go to Florida, with a population density of just over 401 people per square mile, which is higher than China's population density. Metropolitan areas such as Pensacola, Tallahassee, Naples, Cape Coral, and Gainesville don't have a single Amtrak stop. We're not even talking frequent Amtrak service. We're just talking about the existence of Amtrak service at all. For scale, York in England, which I have visited multiple times, has several thousand people fewer than Gainesville, Florida. And yet, York is a major rail hub in England, while Gainesville doesn't even have rail. Okay, so I should probably stop these comparisons between American cities without rail and foreign cities with extensive rail before my blood boils. But anyway, states like Ohio and Florida are a big part of why I don't buy the population density excuse when it comes to our mediocre national rail in the United States. If the rail were extensive in those two states and in other densely populated areas, but were only less extensive in the more sparsely populated parts of the country, then I would consider the population density excuse more seriously. But alas, Even the parts of the United States where we have a dense population oftentimes don't have the rail service they should have for the population sizes they have. For all the reasons I outlined in my video, I do not think that America's lackluster rail system should be blamed on population density. There are other things we can blame it on, and I plan on talking about those things in future videos. I hope that by now I have thoroughly debunked this idea that America is doomed to a mediocre Amtrak because of our low population density. But regardless of whether you agree with me or not, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts by giving a comment in the comment section below. Oh, and please leave a like and make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a good day.